The election polls indicate that our country is moving in an entirely new direction. That is to the right. And we've invited two people, Tom and I, to join us this morning to talk about this. They are eminently qualified to do so. Frank L McNamara, Jr., who is a Boston lawyer and founder of a group called Citizens for America. And also with us is Emmett Tyrrell, Jr., author of, among other books, The Liberal Crack-Up. And we're going to talk about this. Let's start out with this. Is it another fractioning of American political view? Is it extreme? I mean, what is this all about?
Well, I'd make one point, if I might, and that is that what's fracturing is what has traditionally been called American liberalism. And that's because it's moved way off to the left. It's become very extreme. It's gone to war with its various different elements within it. And and lost touch with the American people. Thus, Walter Mondale, who was the brightest liberal of the early 70s, is 19 points behind in the polls.
Well, can you be more specific, though? I mean, when you talk about the liberals, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, environmentalists don't get along with labor. Labor has a bone to pick with feminism. Feminism has a bone to pick with the American mother and the American male. Liberalism has come to be dominated by what in the early 60s we called extremists. And these people have a running war with reality.
Aren't you making extreme generalizations, though, Emmett?
Well, I can only speak in generalizations. I mean, I'm speaking generally about general situations.
You find Walter Mondale an extremist, in other words?
I think Walter Mondale is a victim of extremists. I mean, he was victimized at the Democratic National Convention. He was forced to accept
How
well, look, I mean, a gay caucus at a Democratic National Convention, homosexuality being treated as though it's at one with the plight of a black man in Selma, Alabama in 1950, when a man who couldn't vote, couldn't send his kids to the schools he wanted to send his kids to. In the summer convention, the Democrats could not adapt a plank disavowing anti-Semitism. I mean, that's pretty. That party's become pretty extreme when it can't speak out against anti-Semitism.
May I offer something? And I agree with what Emmett says.
I don't, so we can draw the lines.
It's my humble judgment that the present conservatism in the United States is closer to the Democratic Party of Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, and Jack Kennedy than the Democratic Party of Kennedy, Truman, and Roosevelt is to the present Democratic Party of Walter Mondale, Jesse Jackson, and Gary Hart.
I think that's true.
So I think what you see in the spectrum, Ronald Reagan isn't any different today from what he was 20 years ago. My brand of conservatism isn't any different today from what it was 20 years ago.
Well, Frank,
there's been a shift in the spectrum of American political opinion, however.
Maybe we should ask, so everybody gets in their head, what do you believe, Frank McNamara? What are the principles of the conservatism that you represent?
I'm glad you asked that question, Tom.
I know you are, Frank.
Quite simply put, we believe in God, family, country, thrift, savings, hard work, traditional American values, strength abroad, and charity towards one's neighbor.
Don't the liberals?
How can anybody disagree with that?
A lot of people do, because they say, you're conservative, you must be for gouging the faces of the poor, cutting food stamps, taking people's Social Security away from them, and warmongering abroad. I mean, that's the bum rap the conservatives get tagged with.
Then why are Europeans now, Frank, and Emmett, if I may ask, why are they so afraid of the rattling of weapons?
Absolutely untrue, though. I'll tell you, the press...
What's untrue?
The Europeans aren't afraid of the United States foreign policy. I spend a lot of time in Paris, a lot of time in Rome and London, and I can tell you that the Europeans are very much in favor of the strong, stable foreign policy of the Reagan administration.
Do you spend time with those administrations, Emmett, or do you spend time with the people?
I spend time with the intellectuals and the people. I remember 2 summers ago, I'll give you an example of the kind of thing that happens in the American media. I was on my way to a restaurant in Paris during some pro-freeze, anti-American demonstrations, and in Germany the movement was very large. In Paris, there were only a handful of people. 5,000 people turned out. I was trying to get to the restaurant through the crowd, I can tell you. The next day or day after that in the New York Times, Frank Pryor wrote that 50,000 people had turned out. I called Frank on the phone. I said, Frank, how did you get 50,000 people? He said, well, a cop told me. I said, well, Frank, the demonstrations against the United States in Paris were a botch.
Let me say what's
And
in
we
your
all knew
book
that.
in the terms of the new right ideas. There always will be war. There always will be poverty. Survival of the fittest. Environmentalists are out to ruin the economy by saving resources and not people. Are those things very extreme? Are you extreme?
No, I said what?
That
sounds
the
like a
environmentalists
quote.
are out to... No, it's not a quote. It's just kind of an assumption. I mean, a synopsis of what you're
that book's
saying.
full of poetry.
I
mean,
you want me to quote you one of the
you
lines
could
of
read
poetry?
it much
Emmett?
more beautifully.
Well, then let me ask, is there a feeling that deterrence through strength, an $800 billion a program for something called Star Wars, is this going to be thrift and safety and sanctity of home? Is that your idea, Frank?
Let me say that to begin, you have to begin by analyzing certain fundamental realities in the international arena. If the Soviet Union were England, we wouldn't be having to spend a lot of money. But we're talking about an adversary that suppresses its own citizens, that has a system of pogroms underway now against Jews, the likes of which we haven't seen since the 30s, which uses yellow rain in Afghanistan, which suppresses solidarity, and which conspires to shoot popes.
All right, we don't have a lot of time left, Frank. Emmett, what will our viewers gain if they become a part of this conservative movement, what you advocate?
Well, they are a part of it. They'll gain peace in the world, and certainly they'll have their tax bills lowered. They'll make the economy will continue to prosper, and they'll have the chance to buy that first home or that first car that so many young people want to buy. And it is that kind of economic impulse, by the way, that's forcing so many young people to be conservative.
And it's fair to say you both align yourself with President Reagan, and you feel that he is the one that will get this done.
Sure.
Absolutely.
He has gotten it done.